I think this is puzzle boxy, and they've laid the first few breadcrumbs,
Boom, flash forward to nature taking it back.
dreading a much larger thing that we know.
Humanity is about to be silenced.
You don't know exactly what it's building to,
The Olympics of little 8-year-old math.
bringing the count to 11.
And I don't know if I am subscribed to this.
Hello and welcome to Road Goes Ever On and On. Today, Mark and I are talking about the thrilling science fiction series Station 11, Episode 1, so spoilers are ahead. And if you enjoy this show, then feel free to give it a like. And if you don't want to miss a single one of our episodes, just make sure to subscribe and click the bell icon for notifications. And with that, what are kind of your overall impressions and what are your thoughts on like the filmmaking and storytelling techniques in this?
Well, I would say that, after coming off of Dark Matter, this seems like a great show. I'm really excited for this show. First couple minutes into the show, we are
First minutes, beautiful.
yeah, we're given this shot of a stage that is covered in it's overgrown, nature has taken it back, and with an
Been
instant
reclaimed, yeah.
instant cut, boom, beautiful transition to where it's going and what happened in the past. And I thought that was great, and I'm really excited. It captivated me instantly.
It does a great job of instantly setting high stakes while still not actually revealing much of its hand. You don't know what the stakes are, you don't know what terrible things are going to happen. You just know that it's big.
Oh
And
yeah.
so that just ratchets up tension right away when you wonder, okay, how do we go from we're just watching a play. That's it. We're just watching Shakespeare. How do we go from Shakespeare to what I just saw?
Yeah. And
It was it was a wild filmmaking technique. I loved it.
and what was so cool is they kept using it throughout the episode. Like every once in a
Yeah.
while we'd be on one shot and then boom, flash forward to nature taking it back. Like something cataclysmic has happened. What has happened? Still, little teases here and there of what's going on, but just these, juxtaposition of busy city to nature and like just sharp cuts, which were just phenomenal.
It was a beautiful job of show don't tell. So
Hmm.
instead of somebody having to tell us that the stakes are high, and to a certain extent, I think Jeevan's sister kind of does that. She's telling. And but I think that resonates with us because we have seen the pictures of what is to come, and so that telling then does become okay. I thought it was brilliant storytelling techniques, and then it's interesting that juxtaposition, kind of like you're saying, not just we see how big the stakes are, but then honestly, this first episode, I feel like the stakes are pretty small and personal for two people basically. It's
Yes.
revolving around two people and what they're dealing with. And so I thought that was such an interesting kind of storytelling technique of making us care about what they're going through while at the same time we're kind of dreading a much larger thing that we know is going to be going on. We don't know what it is, but we know
Right.
it's going to happen.
Yeah, and we're basically following Jeevan, and it seems like he's the main character, and we know something bad is about to happen, but now he's like stuck taking this little girl from point A to point B. He's just basically doing a courier mission where he's trying to get this little girl while we know that things are about to go really bad really quickly.
Oh yeah. I love opening credits, and I thought the use of just like title card was brilliant and kind of matched that suddenness of when it's switching between what we're currently seeing and what is going to happen.
Mm.
It's like just big chunky font that just hits hard right in the middle of what we're doing. I thought that was a beautiful use of that, and I was perfectly fine with not having credits.
You know what I really liked about that scene was such a great transition from Jeevan taking Kirsten to the train station to being on the train in a different part of the timeline, and
Right.
just like a nice cut from like, hey, we got to get on this train. Then we're on the train. So at first you're like, wait, are they on the train? And then it's 10 days before. Really cool stuff. I'm digging these transitions, which was also followed with a needle drop. I felt like the needle
Yes,
drops were really good in this episode. Like there were multiple,
really good.
but they were
Yes.
used well.
Yes, I felt like the not just like the sound, but like the lyrics helped move
Hmm.
the story forward and give context or clues or something along those lines. I 100% agree that they were good uses.
I Speaking of sound, I really liked the sound design in this. Like with the Foley artist that I'm sure, you know, did a lot of the work for the sound. Like in the theater, you could like hear the people, like it felt like a theater coughing, and just like there's that guy texting and you hear that da, 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 da. And
Yes.
honestly, one of my favorites was the receipt. Like when you hear the long receipt printing out from when he's buying all the groceries, and it's just like
Yep.
making that perfect receipt noise. Like I think they could have just left that out. You know, they didn't need that, but like having that extra, going the extra mile with that sound design, I think just really elevates it. Like it also makes the little bit of a lighter tone to a very serious situation, and yeah, I really loved it.
And honestly, so kind of piggybacking off of the sound, I loved once again going back to that juxtaposition of the opening scene with nature. We hear the sounds of nature. It's not necessarily a cacophony, but there's like just the those sounds that are kind of everywhere. And it's interesting that it cuts to a theater during a play, but not while there's a line happening. So for a moment, there's just absolute silence.
Mm-hmm.
The kind of silence you wouldn't expect in a big city like Chicago.
Right.
And I thought it was very striking to go from the sounds of nature to just pure
Silence.
silence. I thought that was a better choice than if they had done. It'd be so easy to do the streets of Chicago and, people trying to catch taxis and buses and like all of like
Right.
horns honking, all of that. Like that's a natural kind of like juxtaposition that you can do. But I thought this one was a much more striking one that I don't know why, but it just really hit for me.
Well, maybe it's a message of that humanity is about to be silenced. You know, nature's going to come back and have this revival in Chicago where humanity is just going to be nothing.
Right. Yeah.
Very cool stuff.
For me, this like the way that the story was told, the way that they shot shots, the zoom out at the end and the information that we kind of see from that, beautiful work. I feel like everything was getting me on board. And what's very interesting, so I think that not in a bad way, but the show from the start seemed like a very kind of by the numbers, whether it's, thriller, horror, sci-fi, whatever it is, you don't know exactly what it's building to, but it seemed very kind of by the numbers at first. Once again, not in a bad way, not like
Yeah.
they're doing a bad job. It was well filmed, but it didn't necessarily seem like it had any like tricks up its sleeve. And to hold out until the very end to really have such big surprises, that completely flipped it for me. And I was intrigued the whole time, but at the end it's like, oh, this is very different from what I think is going on.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like I have so many questions still. Like, and I'm so excited. And we'll get to questions and theories
Yes.
later on. But yeah, no, I'm super pleased with how this all started off. You know, seeing Jeevan's, you know, panic attack and how he almost has a second panic attack, and the symbolism of the yoo-hoo with the two chocolate ones and
Right.
one strawberry that
And
is
one
like
strawberry.
a symbol of his siblings and him, and it was just everything was done so well, and I'm excited.
Right. And it's amazing how there can be interesting ways of having like a little bit of humor in these weird situations. Like I loved when they're at the grocery store, and he just has like a basket, and it looks like he's just getting junk food. And instantly I was like, that you're doing the wrong thing. And then you see I'm gonna need a bigger cart, He gets a cart and then cut to like the actual
Flashcards.
checkout. Holy crap! Like it did such a good job of making it seem like what is he doing, and then having a good payoff of you don't necessarily laugh out loud, but it still has real humor to it. So I
Yeah.
feel like the show had you know good kind of warmth at kind of the right moments. Really did a good job of kind of like pulling me in.
Oh yeah, and I going back to the comedy a little bit. I do think the dynamic between Jeevan and Kirsten, like I think they have really good banter back and forth, and they are really funny together. Like when
Oh
he
yeah.
says, it takes a while to figure out what you want to do, and she's just like, "Oh yeah, I'm 8," and like, but previously she had said that she acting is her passion, so like
Yep.
she's figured it out, and Jeevan, who's probably around our age, can't even figure it out.
Right. Absolutely. It's
It's good. But
yeah,
speaking of Jeevan and Kirsten, I think this is a good time to talk about them.
definitely. Kind of going back to their dynamic. Man, kids cut quick with like their questions. Like you and their lines. Like you mentioned the one about not knowing like what you're going to be doing, but then also like jumping straight to oh, who's that? Oh, that's your girlfriend. When are you going to marry her? Or are you going to marry her? And then peppering him with just like question after question after question. There's I've heard something about like you need to ask the question why. I don't remember how many times. It's like 4 or 5 times to get to like the truth behind something. And I think that kids naturally have that in them. Like you rarely can just give them an answer and they're like, "Okay,"
Sure.
because then they'll just ask a why about what you just said,
Right.
and then they'll ask a why about what you said about that. So there's like a natural curiosity and a lack of a filter with them
Yes.
that can sometimes be a little alarming.
That's yeah. And I think that this little actress, I don't know her name, I didn't look it up, but she has done a tremendous job. Like she feels like a really well acted character. Like we've talked about young child actors not being able to deliver a great performance just because they're young, they
Mm,
don't have the
yeah.
skills.
Yep.
But I do feel like she has really proven herself as a great little actress.
Absolutely.
I also think that we kind of know who Jeevan is as a person just from one line that he says.
Okay.
She says, "You were the first one to know that he was having a heart attack." And then he says, "I was the first one to
Yes.
stand up." So Jeevan, who doesn't seem like he's got his life together, he seems, he eats cereal for dinner, he owes his sister a bunch of money,
Yep.
he's losing a job at a flower shop, he's a content creator, which was a little
All right.
bit of a dig at us, but he is the one that would take the action. Like he didn't know CPR, but he was like, I feel like I gotta get up there. Like so he's like the first to run towards the door, or run towards danger maybe. So I do think that is setting up something that we will see him do later.
And it was really striking showing that in the theater because I think so many people could see that he was doing the right thing and nobody else did. Like it's painfully obvious when you're in this huge auditorium that's completely silent and you have somebody climbing over chairs with people in it. You would think that that would be a call to action,
Yeah.
but they're still not woken up yet. It's yeah, so that it really showed something about him that he would just rush right in like that.
Right. And even, the the fact that he kind of took on Kirsten trying to get her home, like he's a good-hearted man. He's got the right qualities. Like his girlfriend just like up and left him, which
Yep.
we'll get back to. But, he's willing to be like, "All right, well, I'm fighting with my girlfriend. I just watched a guy die, but now I got to get this little girl home."
And it's you really see him struggling with morality, not in a like when he's in the parking lot of the grocery store and he says that she has to make the choice because he realizes that if if he makes the choice, that's abduction, and abduction is bad.
Yeah.
So at first he tries to do the right thing of I can't abduct this child. And then when he realizes the danger that she's going to be in from the wrong decision that she made, he then has to decide to lie to her and abduct her.
Yeah.
You can see why it's the right thing to do, but it's interesting that he really tries to do the right thing the right way first,
Yeah.
and then just kind of resorts to doing the right thing, the only way that he can.
Which, and he it can be a little questionable sometimes because, like, when he's trying to take her home on the train, she's like, "Oh, I'm not allowed to go with strangers," and like he does like the Olympics of little 8-year-old math.
And it was really striking showing that in the theater because
Maybe not the best way to go about things, but his heart feels like it's in the right place.
yep, absolutely. And I think it's telling that his sister reaches out to him and not the recluse, what was it, Pulitzer Prize award winning,
At 23.
you know? So I think that that's kind of telling that, yes, one of them may have their life together, but that doesn't necessarily mean that in a pinch that that's going to be the one that does the right thing when
Right.
asked.
Right. And well,
You know?
we did see that his first reaction was to go get his sister. And where Jeevan's
Right.
reaction was like, I think our sister's gone. Like, I think we're not going to be able to save her. Like, we have to. But also, I do think it is a reliability thing where Jeevan we know we can get a hold of, and Frank seems a little bit more difficult to get a hold of. So, like, in a
Right.
pinch, who are you going to call?
Jeevan also, I think when he was saying to stay in there, I think it wasn't just that he knew that it was probably too late, but it was also explicitly following her directions
Yeah.
because those directions were very stark. This wasn't we'll get into this in a bit, I assume, but this wasn't typical pandemic stuff of like avoid others. It was barricade yourself.
Yeah. Which,
So that's like a don't come and get me after you get Frank. Barricade yourself. So I think to a certain extent that was also just following the instructions of knowing his sister knows what's going on and she's made it clear this is what we need to do. We're not supposed to get her.
well, I do think that she kind of had let him know that like this was her end because she was saying that it's so bad. I'm here. Like she's in the front lines of this, and I think that she realizes that she's not getting out of this alive, and that's why she has that memory of the yoo-hoos, and so she reminisces with him one last time because she feels
Yep.
like that's probably going to be her last conversation with him, and I think she realizes it's going to be so bad that this is going to be so dangerous that barricading is the only way to stop them coming in or like getting resources or getting you infected.
Right. Do you want to talk about theories and questions?
I mean, I have some theories and I have some questions. I would love to talk about these things.
Yeah. I have so many questions. I don't have any theories. Once again, this whole thing seemed so kind of like by the numbers until the end. Until that like second to last shot.
With the spaceman?
Yes.
Which, okay, so let's talk about the spaceman real quick and then I can go into some of my other theories.
Real quick.
Well, okay, maybe not real quick. Maybe you have more than real quick. I'm ready. The only thing that
It,
I really noticed that was really cool
okay.
was when Arthur opened the Station 11 book and there
Mhm.
was the symbol and the symbol said MC.
Yes.
That was
Which matches Miranda Carroll's initials.
Miranda Carroll. Wait, which one was Miranda Carroll?
She was the one who met with Arthur, who gave him the book.
Okay, and she's the Wrangler, right?
No.
Okay.
Before when it's like 10 days before,
Right, right,
right?
right, right,
10 days before Miranda's on the train, she puts something in the package,
right.
writes Arthur, whatever his last name is. They see each other. Arthur's super happy, right? Big smile. He goes in for the hug. There is pain maybe on her side.
Right.
Something has happened. Miranda says Arthur in his dressing room says, "I thought I'd never see you again." And she said, "I finished this and wanted to make sure you got one," or something like that. So she gives him. So it seems like she wrote that.
But then Kiki, Kristen, which I think that was a cool
Mm-hmm.
way to show Arthur and her relationship. He has a
Yeah.
nickname for her, Kiki.
Yep. Yep.
Everybody calls her Kirsten. He calls her Kiki, so that shows that they're close. She asked,
Mm-hmm.
"Who is that?" And then he said, "It's
Yes.
the man that ruined
The asshole
the
that ruined my life.
asshole." Oh,
Yeah. She said. He said that's the asshole that ruined my life.
interesting. Okay.
Yes. So the initials are MC, and when we see a guy with a checklist of names of people to call to tell that Arthur has died,
Yes.
one of them is Miranda Carroll, and that's
Okay.
when I think he's talking to the person we had seen, that we'd seen with Arthur 10 days ago. So that's who I
Gotcha.
think that is.
Okay.
So I think they had a relationship at some point, and it's possible that that soured
Yeah.
for some reason. I think it seems to have hurt Miranda more than Arthur, because Arthur was very happy to see her and he was the one expecting not to see her again. But yes, anyway, the spaceman. Sorry, that was a long diatribe to get to who MC is.
Well, no, no, no. I appreciate it because I think I thought that the Wrangler was Miranda as well, and
Got it. No, that's Tanya is the Wrangler.
Tanya. Okay, I totally Tanya Miranda in my mind. I just
Yep.
made them the same person. That's okay. That is actually more helpful because I thought that. Well, we'll come back to this theory of why Tanya was riding in the ambulance with Arthur, which we'll get to. But I we did see the spaceman with that
Yeah.
same symbol.
Yes.
What do you think that is this spaceman real? Is it just Kirsten reading this book? What do you think about it?
I mean, he seemed very real. Oh, he it seemed like a real shot of him
Right,
at the
a,
end.
a real shot, but what if it's just because it was we also see Kirsten reading the book and he's taking off the helmet and he is 11. Oh, cuz we see that he is 11 and that because he has
Hmm.
the 11 on the patch. And then if you read
Yep.
the
And
panels
on
of
the helmet, I think.
yeah, and then when you read the panels, he said, we're the monsters, paraphrasing.
To the monsters, we're the monsters.
And then the other guy says, I don't know 11. I seem pretty handsome to me or something like that.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I didn't know if that scene with the astronaut is a real thing occurring or if it is Kirsten's imagination because she was reading the book.
Is that a spacesuit? Because he seemed to be, and this is from Dawn, because
Okay.
I thought the same thing, that it's a spacesuit. It
Yeah.
looks very much like a spacesuit. And we see him in space. But we also see him in what looks like a base. So you would hope they have oxygen and that they don't need to wear the spacesuit. So is it a spacesuit? And or is it a diver suit? Because
Hmm.
here are a couple things.
Yeah.
One, the cover of the book. Did you look at it closely?
I did, but now I
So
can't think of it.
there's very turbulent water going between imposing cliffs. There's buildings built on top of the cliffs, rope bridges connecting like the different ends of the cliffs, which is very interesting and kind of precarious way to get around. There's a sailboat, and so this seems like terrestrial place, and water was a big part of it. But also, if you look at that shot where we see the guy
Oh,
on, we're looking from below him, so we see his feet, right?
hmm.
Above him, did you notice that there was water above him?
I did not notice the water.
There's water above him. Not just, at first that's all I noticed was like there was bubbles in the water, so it's like, okay, that's how I noticed it's water. It was like there was movement. And at first, whatever, that could just be cooling tank for whatever kind of equipment they have in space. But it was weird. And so I paused and looked at it, and there looked like there were large rocky formations.
Hmm.
I would expect to find somewhere terrestrial, not somewhere on space. Yeah, it could be a fucking huge fish tank. Be huge. That seems very like water is extremely heavy. So getting
Oh
a
yeah.
huge tank into space would be in crazy. And not only were there like large rocky shapes, but I also saw motion that to me looked like fish.
Interesting. See, I kind of feel really dumb right now because I was like, when you see the person 11, we'll just call that person 11, looking at the the instruments seemed to me like that was that same symbol over the MC. Like there were things
Mm.
spinning. So at first I thought that symbol
Oh,
was a
okay, you were
solar.
asking about the symbol. Sorry.
Oh
Yes.
no. That was all I noticed. So the symbol I thought was a solar system at first, but then I saw the same symbol again with 11, so I wasn't even paying attention to anything in the background, and for some reason I thought it seemed like a giant space station above Earth, but now I feel really dumb with all these things that you noticed.
I no, don't feel dumb. So my initial take was that that looked like a solar system as well. I thought it looked like I just assumed it was our solar system.
Mm-hmm.
But when I paused and looked at it, I noticed that it definitely wasn't our solar system because it had like 10 bodies in it, other like not including the sun or star. And then I noticed that also, actually, I think I originally counted nine. And I was like, okay, well, maybe they're, no, it was 10 because it was like Planet X, right? Anyways, I think I counted 10. And, but then I noticed that like some of the bodies are in the same orbit. Like there were not as many orbital rings as there were bodies
Mm-hmm.
because like one of the rings actually had three bodies on it. And that's when I was like, okay, this is definitely not our solar system. And then using those, like when I was counting those rings, I noticed a ring that didn't have a body, but when I looked at it closer, I realized, oh no, it has one. It's just really tiny, bringing the count to
Mm.
11.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
So are these all
which
stations?
I don't know because that's I can't tell the significance of 11 because so station 11 sounds like a place, but then
Yeah.
he has 11 on him. Maybe everybody that is at station 11 has that, so you know what station they work at.
But in the book he calls him 11.
And then there's 11 bodies. So I'm trying to get to the significance of
Interesting.
that. Yeah,
I honestly
there
could see that the astronaut that we saw, the live action astronaut, either is in Kirsten's head from her reading the book, Station 11, or that is Kirsten wearing that 11 costume decades into the future.
I think I think that is Miranda's current lover, boyfriend, something like that. And I think that person's name, I don't know if the recording was talking about Raymond, Jeevan, and Kirsten, or if it was to Raymond, and that is like the guy's name is Raymond. And the only reason I think it might be somebody connected with Miranda was Miranda wrote that, and when Kirsten asked, "Who is that?" Arthur pointed at the cover, clearly pointing at 11, and said, "That's the asshole that ruined my life." So
Hmm.
I think it's a real person from now that Miranda knows about. Because I think that this isn't just something in Kirsten's head from reading this comic. There's something really weird going on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this pandemic doesn't seem like a normal pandemic. You don't board yourself up from a pandemic. You avoid other people.
Well, unless, because it does seem like this pandemic is happening super quickly. Like it does seem that like we went through COVID, we had a pandemic. It was definitely killing people, but not instantly killing people. Where this does, like, we saw the airplane fall out of the sky. Like somebody was thought they were good enough to fly a plane, and then I'm assuming died mid-flight. So I could see that because of how quick and bad this flu is, that you would want to barricade yourself just to like make sure like it's extreme lockdown, right? Like nobody can get in here. I
It
don't
seemed
know.
like there was another danger level when Jeevan and Kirsten finally left 80 days later. He was carrying a knife,
Right.
you
That's
know,
true.
and the guy that was driving his car into the tree continued to press the gas pedal. He didn't seem right in the head. The security guard slash doorman, whatever you want to call him, at Frank's building, that guy was just sitting at his desk. If you think you're dying, who would stay at their job?
Yeah, and the plane crashed that night.
Right,
So did he come back to work? Like did he must have died that night, I would assume.
right. So it's wild that.
I do have a few theories
Okay.
about this pandemic.
Yes.
I think Arthur died from the pandemic. I don't think he had a heart
Okay.
attack.
Okay.
And okay, I think that it is almost like dark matter, where it's a physical contact that spreads this pandemic. Jeevan never
Okay.
touches him, never touches Arthur. And going back to the theory of why Tanya was in the ambulance with Arthur, who was already pronounced dead, makes me think that Tanya is also suffering from the affliction. So she didn't ride in the ambulance with Arthur. She was sick and getting rushed to the hospital, because that would be the only reason I could imagine that she would leave Kirsten. My final theory to this whole puzzle, because that would mean that because Tanya never touches Jeevan, but Tanya does touch Kirsten. I think kids are immune to this pandemic
I do think kids have some significance.
because they Sia talks to the kids in the hospital, and
The
she's asking
hospital.
if any of them are feeling sick, and none of them are feeling sick, and it seems like all their parents are dying from it. And that's why
Yeah.
I also think Kirsten's parents died from the pandemic. That's why they weren't answering the door.
Yes, I think so.
And I think Jeevan figures that out, and Kirsten doesn't get it because she's a kid. That's why Jeevan doesn't get it. He doesn't touch anybody throughout the play. But yeah, so I think his girlfriend got it because she said she was responsive and saying, I didn't feel well, so I went home.
Yep.
And she stops answering his calls, which makes me think that she succumbed to the illness. Though,
I think that I can definitely see all of that. I do think that there's something bigger afoot than just a traditional sickness, because the sickness seemed crazy fast, and the storm was fast and huge. It
yeah,
looked like, when it zoomed out, it looked like it was covering like 3/5 of the U.S.
yeah.
in snow. That doesn't seem normal.
The only thing that made me think that may have happened there, and I don't know if I am subscribed to this theory, but there was a nuclear winter. And so as people were dying from this illness, they may have bombed certain areas with nukes, and that's why they had a nuclear winter from the fallout of it. But I'm not on board 100% with that theory, but it is something I thought about, of why that the snow is like that.
I think we're going to see Miranda again,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's she's still alive or we get more information about her, because when the person that was calling to say that Arthur had died. When he called Miranda, she responded with, "How are you calling this phone?"
Hmm.
Not "Why are you calling?" or "Who are you?" but "How are you calling this phone?"
Yeah, I totally missed that. That's interesting.
Which to me, like, is she up in space and that call shouldn't be able to go through, or did it go through time and she's answering from a different, like, the future when all the phones are not working because cities are whatever?
We did also notice that as the phone, like, it started breaking up at the end, like it started going. So I did notice that, and it does seem that that would be too quick to happen in a pandemic. Like that wouldn't be interesting.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
I don't know now. Now you've got me pondering. I thought it was just a flu and that was it. And now I feel like there could be a lot more to this. And
There's I think there is much more under the surface, and I think this is puzzle boxy, and they've laid the first few breadcrumbs. I think they've had the first big WTF moment
mhm.
that kind of lets you know that there's something crazy going on, and I think a lot more is going to get teased out.
Yeah. One other cool detail I think that is related to the pandemic. You know, when we see Jeevan in the theater, he's there's got like somebody texting. And I think these were little subtle hints because even after Jeevan goes up on stage, everybody's on the phones and
Yes.
when he walks outside, you hear about the flu. Like these were all these
Yep.
little subtle hints that this pandemic was coming and it was just right from the beginning laid out just like boop 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 boop, which
Absolutely.
I loved.
The last interesting point, although it's that I have, that's like a little weird thing, which technically is in the book, so who knows whether or not that's based in reality or not. But I did think I saw a crack in the visor, which to me then makes it non-functional for either space or water, which makes me wonder, why is the helmet still on? What is being covered? Who is underneath of it, or what is underneath of it?
Kirsten or Jeevan.
I don't know, but I think it's going to be a big reveal.
I'm excited. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
Yeah, I'm loving the show.
Love it.
So good.
Hooked.
Oh yeah,
Episode 1, hooked.
it is. It is great. I'm stoked. It's instantly better than Dark Matter, and I can't
They
wait to go
they
on this
had me
ride.
from yes. They had me from that first scene.
Oh yeah.
That was such a good hook to get me interested. Do you know that this was filmed during the pandemic? So so this was the pilot. And
Hmm.
there was like a year from the pilot to the rest of the series being filmed.
Really?
And the before shots were actually shot before the pandemic. They wouldn't have been able to do the theater shots and a lot of the other, like the outside of the theater with all the people standing around, like they wouldn't have been able to do that
Oh wow.
during the pandemic with all the protocols in place. So they managed to get that in time. So it's interesting that they were going through a pandemic while they were filming a
Right.
pandemic.
That I mean, there was that little bit of a hiccup of like when he's at the grocery store. I was thinking, well, if it was a pandemic, this place would be packed right now, just
Mm.
full of people buying stuff. But I do,
Shelves would be empty.
but I do feel like that this one, it wasn't like COVID, where COVID, it took a while to spread. It was having infectious areas. Like this one just
Yep.
seems like people are just dying like that. So I think that you could make the argument people weren't filling the things because they were filling the hospitals instead.
If you want to be nitpicky, so I think that, like, we were nitpicky about the last show. I
Mm-hmm.
think you could be nitpicky about this show. I think that I'm so engaged that it's easy to gloss over that and not notice, or give it a pass. Dawn mentioned the fact that she didn't like, I don't remember even sister's name,
See ya.
but the fact that she Sia. The fact that she took her mask off as soon as she left the kid space, and then like all of those people that are like staff that are working very closely together aren't wearing masks. That didn't add up for us based off of our experience with pandemics. And
Yeah.
maybe that was shot before the pandemic. That was a pretty crowded scene. That was probably before the pandemic.
Well,
So like that, the grocery store, like you can definitely, if you want to, you can find these kind of issues, but I feel like it doesn't have a ton of them, one, and then two, it's so compelling that you're focused on what matters
mm-hmm.
and not noticing some of the mistakes, or once again just like giving it a pass
Yeah.
for them.
But I also could make the argument that it does seem like they know that they're gonna die. Like, but they're all three talking with each
They've
other.
all made their yes.
They all
Somebody
said,
asked like
"Who did you call?"
who they called. Yes,
And
and
then
the one guy just just texted by on Twitter.
yeah, just said bye. That's all. So that's why
They
I
know.
could.
Okay.
I give it. There are these a couple holes, but I do feel like you can give them passes because like they did mask for the children, and it seems like the children are going to be healthy and they're kind of quarantined on their own, and they have protocols
Yeah.
of wearing a mask in there. But she coughs right afterwards, and she's like, "Well, I'm dead. Everybody in this hospital
Yeah.
is going to die." So there's no, because she knows the threat of this flu. So
Yeah.
I could give it a pass there. I'm not too angry at that.
Okay. Sia says, "Don't trust what you hear about this." Why is that? Like, is there an agenda that is being pushed for some reason that doesn't line up with the truth of what she is seeing? That's
Hmm.
another really weird point. And we see a news broadcast that says
We hear a
the
couple of them.
FAA isn't preventing travel.
Right, right.
That seems
Odd.
dangerous.
Oh yeah, if we found out the Moscow, somebody came from Europe or Moscow, and that's what started it over here, like that's awful. And I right after we hear her say don't trust the media, we hear like a radio broadcast or somewhere where it sounds like the WHO recommends drinking lots of water and not have no contact with other people. And so I think that when she says don't trust them, they're gonna like underplay the pandemic. But there was another broadcast that said there were two other broadcasts. There was one that said with protesters that the flu is causing protests to happen. And then the second one was another broadcaster said, "This isn't the boy who cried wolf. This is the wolf."
Right.
So I don't know what to think. I don't know what to think. But I do think Frank died.
I do think Frank died.
He had a cane when we first saw him. So it seems like he has some affliction already. And I don't know if it's just
Yeah.
a compromised immune system or what. But I just thought of something. When we see Kirsten reading Station 11 when she's an adult,
Yes.
we see the guy come up and says, "Hey, we're about to rehearse again, get ready to come over." He doesn't have arms. I'm
Yes.
wondering if there is a way that when you catch this flu, if you amputate your arms, if that was something that helped him live through the pandemic.
Eager to see the next episode.
I know, I'm speculating
itching.
wildly. Yeah. All
Yeah.
right.
Good.
We'll end that there. But with that, I think our journey has come to an end. Thank you folks so much for joining us for Station 11. Come back next week. We will be doing Station 11, Episode 2, and we look forward to seeing you then. I'm Mark. This is Sterling.
Thanks.